We've had a lot of elimination games between LSU and Alabama through the years. Although one time they eliminated each other, then had to play again. But other than that. But Saturday, 7:30, Tiger Stadium feels like someone isn't just getting thrown out of the playoff, because this isn't a 2-team playoff or a 4-team playoff. This is a 12-team playoff, and I don't think anyone at LSU or Alabama thinks that they should be out of the playoff in early November. But here we are. Alabama's 6-2. LSU is 6-2. LSU only has one league loss, but their non-conference loss to USC is not aging well. And someone's going to win and continue the dream of getting in. No guarantees. But somebody's done. And that means it's either Kalen DeBoer's first season or Brian Kelly's third. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of happiness on either of those. I mean, we talked last week about Ryan Day and James Franklin, but James Franklin lost. It took a lot of heat. He's still in there. Pat, how big of a pressure cooker is this one?
Man, I mean, as you said, this game tends to have huge stakes, and this one is right there with them, but for a little bit different reasons, because both teams have been a little disappointing so far. I'm not, terribly disappointed in what LSU has put on the field, but the second half against A&M was a debacle that kind of is lingering over them at this point. And then Alabama, after everything looked so beautiful for the first 5 games, has just been a real struggle since then. 2 bad losses. Losing at Tennessee, no great shame, but the way it happened was pretty ugly. And so you're right that, given the quick trigger fan bases and given the expectations of both schools and what they're accustomed to, Brian Kelly goes 3 years without making a playoff, and one of them's a 12-teamer. Kalen DeBoer goes any year without making a 12-team playoff, and they're going to be angry with the loser for sure. And you're right, the winner, too, is by no means guaranteed of getting in. It's a good resume chip for sure, but it's not a guarantee. You're sitting there with 2 losses, and you're probably going to need help from other people.
This one is our first kind of, it feels like, true elimination game between two teams that are contending. The loser is almost certainly out, you would think, and the winner is probably in. But yeah, like you guys said, it would be a bubble team. Probably almost certainly would be a bubble team. Pat said that, when you look at Brian Kelly, through 3 years, if in not any of those years he makes the playoff, including 1 year with a 12 team, that's tough, right? There's certainly going to be a lot of noise in Baton Rouge over that. This team has been all over the map, right? They blew leads against USC in the second half. They blew leads against, of course, A&M in the second half. And then they had basically miracle comebacks against South Carolina and Ole Miss. So it's just been all over the map. The defense at times has played well and carried the team. The defense at times had blown 2 touchdown leads. And Garrett Nussmeier makes some incredible throws, and guess what? Has 9 interceptions on the season. So he's up and down as well. So it's hard to read this one. It really is. But it's a big one. And when you look at, again, we've talked a lot about the elimination games, but this really gives us the first true one between 2 contenders. And it's exciting. And this is exactly what I think the expanded, those in support of an expanded CFP wanted, is that in November you'll have these sort of games.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of them. And that's kind of excitement. And I don't think we lost anything from Alabama's other 2 losses or LSU's other 2 losses. Like, they were highly rated and a lot of intensity and excitement, but boom, here we are. I just think there's such an expectation, and I think it's fair, if you're at an LSU or you're at Alabama, that you need to be making this playoff half the time. I don't know, 2 out of 3, 4 out of 5. We'll see how hard it is, but you're not making it.
No, I think the expectation is to make it every year now that it's 12. I mean, the one problem with this, and I get it, I understand it, is nobody really crunches the numbers and really does the math other than just to say, well, if we're going to 12, we're getting in. And LSU and Alabama think they should be in all the time. I'd say, along what lines you were saying, 2 out of 3 would be 3 out of 4, maybe. More realistic, but to think you can do it every time, especially now in a league with Texas added and Texas A&M looking like it's back and Tennessee is good and Georgia's never going away. So it's not easy out of that league, but huge pressure. The one I get a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks. Ross, you touched on Nussmeier, who he's a swashbuckler, man. He likes to try to make plays, but he makes enough bad ones that, he's put his team in some spots. He had 3 interceptions in the span of 19 passes in the second half against A&M when everything was going wrong. And Milroe has struggled at times too. His last 3 games have been his lowest passer ratings of the season. He was really not good against Tennessee, missed a lot of open receivers. And it's like he's got Ryan Williams and they've got Jeremy Bernard, the receiver transfer from Washington. They haven't fully energized the tight end position. Dupre was really good against Georgia and then not much since then. And that's it. They're kind of hurting for that next receiver. So the quarterbacks, we'll see. One of them's going to have to step up their game from what we've seen from them recently.
Yeah, this is going to be a tense game. These are two. I mean, this isn't vintage LSU or Alabama, and I think their fans know it. But there's just sort of a bit. I just think for Brian Kelly to go 3 years. I mean, you had Jaden Daniels. He's an NFL MVP candidate, not just rookie of the year. Like, what happened? And they had a tough go. They lost to Florida State, Alabama, and Ole Miss. None of them in Baton Rouge. So, it's last year was last year, but you got to make some progress. And we'll see if he keeps the commitment with Bryce Underwood, the number 1 player that Michigan's all over, and I'm sure everyone else is all over at this point. If they sense some blood in the wall, I mean, this is a big game for that.